then since we successfully created the artist model, now all we have to do is to get back over the artist model over here, and inside here I'm going to create a form to display the form details where the user can able to upload the form to our Supabase. So let's open our terminal. Let's open up our terminal, and here I'm going to shut it down, our application shutdown. Okay, so I'm going to install 3 different packages. So let's say npm install unique id. You have to install this unique clear. So let's say npm install unique id, then you have to install the types also. So let's install this first. Okay, then I'm just going to say npm install -d at types unique id. This is for the types for that unique id to support the TypeScript. Then we have to install the React hook form. React hook form. This is the one. So let's say npm install React hook form. Along with that, we need to bring nice toast notification, some alert notification like the data is being saved, or is there any error, we need to display the error. For that, I'm going to use the React hot toast, right? So npm install React hook form and React hot toast. So install, hit enter, and please go ahead and install those things. All right, so now we have all our necessary packages. So let me rerun it. So npm run dev, so that is going to run the development environment, and let's refresh it. Okay, all right. Let me get back over here and let's refresh it one more time, and it's going to fetch the user details. Here we go. And if I click, okay, so now we can see we have the information over here. All right, so let's get back to the artist model. So right after this artist model, what I need the user information. So const user, so you can access our user information from use user, which we can get from @hooks @user from here. So let's bring it right after here. All right, then what I have to do, I have to fetch the user information alone. That's enough. That's information is enough for the time being. Then we have to create the Supabase client from using Supabase client, from using @auth React helpers from there, right? Then what I have to do is I need the router also. So I'm just going to create the router object. Const router is equals to use router from where? From next navigation. Make sure that you're bringing the router informations from the next navigation. So bring this over here and keep this on the top. Okay, something like this. All right, fine. So now we have all the necessary objects. So since we already installed the form, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const equals to use form. So make sure that use form hook, it's coming from React hook form. So let's bring it to the top. Okay, so React hook form. So this form, it's going to keep the type of field values. So it's going to keep the type of field values, FIELD values. So the field values is a type which coming from your React hook form itself. That's the type. So from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the register object. Then I'm going to get handle submit to submit that form data, then to reset the form data, right? These are the things that I need from that specific type. Then I'm going to open the object and I'm going to fix the default values for the object. Default values, colon, open it. So first, okay, what we need the author name. So author, it's going to be an empty string initially. Then description, that is also going to be an empty string. Then followers, that is also going to be 0 initially. Picture, we need the picture, initially it's going to be the null. Then Facebook, and what else we do have? Instagram, LinkedIn, and finally we need the Twitter. So make sure all these names are properly written exactly, which is matching your artist column. So I'm gonna edit this column over here, then I'm going to copy, and I'm going to make sure everything is perfectly exactly the same. It's not necessary to keep the same, but if you are keeping the name over here same, we don't we will never run into any unwanted issues. That's the reason I'm just trying to keep the object names, local object names, and as well as the row name also, that means the column name as well as the same, right? So we don't want any unwanted troubles when we are working with this. I think maximum everything is perfectly fine, right? And then I'm just going to cancel it. All right. So please make sure author, description, and Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything should be a string, and the followers, it should be a numeric, and the picture, it should be a null initially. This is the object that we are trying to create over here. So whenever there is a changes is happening, all I have to do is to reset that, which means if that form is opening and closing, I should reset the entire form, right? So that's the reason I'm just resetting it. And of course we need to create ourselves a custom on submit. So const on submit, that's the function which we are creating for ourselves. And that function is going to be an asynchronous function, and that function is going to access the values whenever the form is being submitted. And this on submit is going to be the type of submit handler, which is coming from React hook form. Please make sure that it's been imported there. Then it should use this type of field values which we already generated using this field values. So we're going to access all the values inside over here, right? And inside, this is the place where we are going to create all the necessary actions and everything. For the time being, I'm just going to keep it empty. Then let's go ahead and create the form inside here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a form over here. All right, so now over here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep this. Wait a minute. This is going to be a form. So form tag, yes, something like this, right? So I don't need to keep these actions and all those things. Let me ignore that action. So we don't need that action. So what I'm going to do is over here, this form should have this on submit event, and that on submit event need to be handled by using this handle submit. So handle submit, we should call the React hook form handle submit function. That function need to trigger our custom function over here. So pass that submit function inside as the reference. So whenever this on submit is the event for this particular form, whenever you are clicking a button, this on submit event will be triggered, and it's going to call the React hook handle submit function, and that function is going to trigger our custom function which we created over here, right? So inside this form, now we have to create the input fields. So we don't have this custom component called input. Of course, it's going to have an error. So we need to supply the ID name for this. First name, what is going to be? It's going to be author, and it's going to be disabled. Okay, so we have to bring all those necessary information. For the time being, I'm just going to bring the input, and of course we are going to get an error that input is not there, right? So now what I have to do is to go to the components and create an input.tsx and sfc, and I'm going to say input, right? And inside here div, I'm just going to create an input, something like this, right? And let's get back to the artist model, and let me bring that input from /input. Save this changes. Now that should resolve that issue. If I click this, now I can see the input tag. Okay, so let's go ahead and start customizing the custom input tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an input for this. I'm going to create an interface input props, open it. Sorry, we don't need to open it. This is going to extend the default react.input HTML attributes types, and it's going to use the type as HTML input element, right? And let's keep that empty object over here. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. So this custom input is going to have, I'm going to use the forward reference. So forward ref, which is coming from the React, and I'm going to supply the type as the HTML input element, and it's going to use this input props which we created, right? And open this function bracket. So inside this function bracket, I'm going to call a callback function. Okay, and inside this function, this function is going to have the parameters. I'm going to send the parameters as the class name, and I'm going to access the type of that input, and I'm going to use the disabled, and I'm going to get all the remaining props, all the necessary remaining props, and I'm going to create the reference object for this forward reference. Okay, for this forward reference, I'm going to create the reference object too, right? Inside here, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to return an input, and this type is going to be the type object which we have, and the class name, of course, it's going to be, I'm going to use the dynamic, and I'm going to use the TW merge, which is coming from our tailwind merge, and it's going to have our class properties, and along with that class name which we are sending it from the parent, and of course it's going to use the disabled, it's going to map with the disabled prop. And let me bring this, you can see it completely disabled. Then we need to pass the reference, which we have the reference object, and we have to extend all the remaining props exactly as it is. All right, that's the thing which we are going to do. And finally, let's do one more thing. So input dot display name, by default it's going to be always input. So save these changes. Okay, so now the place where I'm calling the input inside the artist model. So inside this artist model, now what I need to do is, all I have to do is to send the input along with the ID. So we need the ID. So I'm just going to say author to maintain it in a unique way, and disabled. But whenever it needs to be disabled whenever we are loading the form. So I'm going to create a new custom hook, use state. I'm going to create a new state like is loading. If the form has been loading, so we have to disable that input field. We are not supposed to allow the user to edit or alter anything in that form. So it should monitor this particular state. By default it's going to be false. Then I'm going to get all, I'm going to spread out the register properties, and I'm going to create a unique ID for that specific field, which is going to be the author. So make sure this ID and this field which I'm passing is going to be same, and I'm going to send some validations also. This is going to be required true. And finally, I need to send the placeholder. So placeholder, which is going to be the artist name. So save these changes. This is how it looks like. So now if I click this, and you can see we have a field with a specific style over here. So let's go ahead and customize the look and feel of our input field over here inside this string. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to say it's going to be flex, and width, of course, it's going to be full, rounded medium, and BG neutral 700, and it's going to have the border, and it should be have the border transparent initially. PX it's going to be 3, PY it's going to be 2, text size it's going to be small, and if it is a file, then we don't need any border. So border it's going to be 0. It means if it is a file type, if the input tag is the file type, then we don't need that. So that's the reason we are writing the styles for that too, right? So we might be using the same input field for the type also. That's the reason I'm writing the styles for the file also. File border it's going to be 0, and file, if it is file, then it's going to be BG transparent. If it is a file, then the text size is going to be SM. And if it is a file, then font is going to be medium, and the placeholder styles it's going to be text neutral 400, and disabled it's going to be cursor not allowed. If it is disabled, then the opacity it's going to be the 50% of opacity, and whenever it is being focused, then I don't need the outline. So save these changes. Now if you run this is how it looks like. So now we have ourselves an artist name field. Just like the same way we have to create for the rest of the fields, like for the descriptions and for Facebook and for Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Followers we don't have to worry about, because followers count initially for every artist is going to be 0. If the user clicks the followers option, then it needs to update the followers count. It needs to increment the followers count, right? So what I have to do is to, let's go ahead and create the description field. All I have to do is to copy this, paste it, and change this author name to description, and change this to artist description here, something like this. Save the changes. Now you should see the artist description. For this form, let's add some class it's equals to, so form should always be flex and flex column, and gap y it's going to be 4 always. Save these changes. Now you can see we have some gap over here. So now I have the description. Now right after here, now what I need to do, I need to bring the image upload section, right? So right after here I'm going to create a div, and inside this I'm going to create one more div with a class name of pb-1, right? That means the padding bottom. So here I'm just going to say select an image file. Then right after this I'm going to bring that input one more time, and I'm going to use this same name for this, and as well as this is loading is going to be true. And for this I'm just going to say type of this, it's going to be file type. Type is going to be the file type. Disabled is going to be loading, and it should accept all kind of image/star. So in that, before going to that, what I have to do, get back to your storage and click the image buckets, edit this image bucket. Please make sure that you allow this, it should accept every image or not, right? So please make sure that you are selected that option over there, right? So now we have our picture and of course artist image here. Okay, that's the placeholder. So save these changes. Now you should able to see this option. So this, if you click that, it should able to allow you to choose any kind of image over here, right? All right. So then now what I have to do is to, let's get back. We added our description, and now we have to bring all the social medias. So I'm going to copy this, and right after here, so I'm going to bring it for Facebook placeholder. It's going to be www.facebook.com, something like this. Save these changes, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it for Instagram. Then I'm going to paste it for Twitter. Then I'm going to paste it for LinkedIn. So in this, I'm just going to duplicate, and I'm going to change this to Instagram, and let's duplicate these things and change this to Twitter, and at the end duplicate all those things. Press Ctrl D to select all these duplicates, and then change this to LinkedIn, something like this. Now we have all the necessary fields, and anyways at the end of the form we have to bring a button, and this button is going to say create, and it's going to disabled, using this disabled, or sorry, is loading. Whenever it is the loading, the button should be disabled, and the end it should be, the form should be the type of submit, then only the button will be submitting the form. So if the form is submitting it, now we will get all the necessary fields where over here. So for the time being, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say console.log values. I'm just doing that, So if I click inspect elements, for instance, let's say if I am bringing back the console, let me bring it over here, clear it. Okay, so here I'm gonna bring some artist names, some descriptions, and the some details over here. And if I click create, nothing is happening. I think we made a mistake somewhere. So if this is the type of submit, then of course it is going to call this on submit, and that on submit it's going to call on submit const on submit. Submit handler values what else we made, what mistake we made. This should trigger that. Okay, register, reset, use forms. There is no mistake so far, everything is perfect. So save these changes, and if I click refresh it, sometimes this happens. If I click this and if I click create, no, nothing is happening. I'm not sure why it's not doing anything over here. Okay, so let's see the changes. Let's write the code and let's figure it out later why it's, I'm not sure why it is not printing the values, but usually it should. So let's create a try and catch and then let's check it out. Try and catch and say it as finally, and set is loading as false. Every time it should be false, which means then it should set is loading as true when you're trying something, right? So let's try to get the const picture. Let's try to get the picture. Come on, picture file. From where? From the values. From the values, I'm gonna get the picture. I'm going to get that 0th index. Then I'm just going to say console.log picture file. Save these changes. If everything is working fine, now if I click this, if I choose this image, and if I click create, come on, this on submit is not working. All right, so let's try to figure it out why it's not working. So let's see, let's start writing the coding, the remaining coding, and let's figure it out why it's not working right now. I'm not sure, everything is fine. Anyways, let's figure it out over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the values one after another.